everybody, this is Oksana. This video is going to be a remake of my basic ring tutorial I made 6 years ago. That video is quite old, so I thought it was time for a remake with a better quality camera, so it'll be more clear. And also in this video I'm going to share a little tip with you about getting it to be the size that you want, so hopefully that'll be helpful. And let's go ahead and get started making this ring. The tools that I'll be using in this video are wire cutters to cut the wire. These are Lindstrom brand, regular pliers that are Lindstrom Rx 7890, and then round nose pliers, and they are RX 7590. I'm going to be starting with 2 pieces of 20 gauge square copper wire. This is dead soft. It's from Rio Grande, and I like to use copper in my tutorials because it's a good one to learn and practice on since it's more affordable. But once you get this design down, feel free to use other types of wire as you please, like sterling silver, etc. So you can either use 20 gauge or 21 gauge. They both will work. 20 is obviously a little bit thicker and stronger, but if your stone is super tiny, it might be hard to bend around the stone, so depending on the size you can size down to 21 gauge. And you just need 2 pieces of that wire. Mine measured to be about 9 inches. The other type of wire we're going to use is half round wire. This is 22 gauge, but feel free to use 24 gauge. Either one will work. It's just a thin wire like this. It's also dead soft. And we're basically just going to be wrapping this wire around these 2 wires, but how long you do it for will depend on your ring size. So here's what you can do to determine that. You can take your ring mandrel, and let's say I want to make a size 7 ring. I'm going to wrap this wire around size 7. But then before I connect it, I'm going to bend it a little bit early and leave like a little gap there. The gap was quite small like this because what's going to happen, you'll see, is there's going to be a little overlap where we connect the wire, so that's why we need a tiny gap. So this length right here is how long we need to wrap the wire for to get a size 7 ring. So you can use this and you can mark where to start and where to end, like with a Sharpie marker on your wires, or you can trim this bit of wire, just trim it off, and then you can always hold it up and measure to see if you've wrapped long enough until you get to the right size. So I'm just going to do that. Just going to trim this off, and this will be for sizing. So I'm just going to take that and find kind of roughly the middle here of my 2 wires, and if this is how long I need to wrap, I also want that to be kind of in the middle, so I'm going to start here and finish there. So I'm going to go ahead and pinch my wires here so I know where to begin. And I'm going to get my half round wire that's still connected to the spool, and I'm going to begin wrapping it in that spot there. So I'm going to actually just take this little tail end and wrap it around a few times just to give it a little bit of stability, so it's not moving all around. And then once you've done that and it's connected, what you want to do, since this is half round wire, it's going to get twisted if I just wrap it around like that, so I have to turn the piece. So I'm taking the whole piece here and just turning it and guiding the wire, just guiding it with my index finger here and turning those 2 base wires, and you can see it's getting wound on top of them like this. I know there's a tiny little gap here in the beginning. We can close that up not a problem. And just keep going with this until it is long enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep doing this, and then once it starts getting longer, I'm gonna take that little wire that I cut myself for my size 7 ring, and I'm gonna hold it up and see if it's long enough. So once it reaches to here, I will stop. All right, so now it's the right length. It was actually a little bit too long, so I had to unravel a little bit, but here's my little wire, and I'm measuring up to see that it's long enough. So this beginning little tail end, I'm gonna trim, but not yet with the other one. So just gonna come in here and trim that. And this other wire, we're gonna use that to connect both ends of the ring together. So you wanna leave yourself a few inches, maybe like 3 inches or so, and then you can trim it. So now what you wanna do is you just wanna press down on that little wire end, and then just the whole part here. Just go and press down on all of that to flatten it. And then we're going to take our ring mandrel, and the direction that we're going to bend it is holding it with the wire end visible, this one that we trimmed, facing us. That way it'll get covered, and bending it around the size that you want. So I was going for a size 7. So I'm just bending it around that. And just continue bending it like this. And then you're going to have this little overlap here, and that's the part that you want to wrap this wire around all 4 of these wires to connect them. So you're just going to take this wire, put it through here. The overlap is becoming a little bit bigger. There we go. Then you're just going to wrap it around just like this. The one thing that you don't want is for this area here, this overlap area, to be larger than your stone. You want it to be about the same size, because if it's much larger when you're bending the wires around the stone, it's going to be hard to get them close to the stone. So just check for that. And what I can do to check for that is just take my stone, which I'll measure in a second, and then see how it fits, and it seems to fit really nicely on that little area there. I'll measure this for you. It's kind of hard to measure something so tiny, but I think it's about, I want to say 6 or 7 millimeters maybe. It's a silky moonstone. So what we're going to do here is trim our wire. So the wire end is here on the inside. You don't want it to go past here. So when you press down on it, there's that little wire end, and just press down on this whole little area like that. And then I'm just going to put this back on the ring mandrel just to make sure that it's still sitting at that size 7. If I push it down to a bigger size, you can see that gap forming there. So I'm going to keep it at a size 7, kind of tighten it up this way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these wires and bend them a little bit upwards. These ones that are on the very bottom, and the ones that are on the top, I'm going to bend them a little bit downwards. So like this. And this kind of locks it in place at this size as well. Since now they're bent, they're not going to move apart as easily. So you can either leave the wires as they are, or if you'd like to twist one of the wires just for a twisted look and a twisted effect, you can do that. So I'll go ahead and do that with the inner wires just to show you what it would look like. So to do that, you would hold the wire with your pliers and then you would just turn the ring and you can see the twisted effect appearing as you do that. And then once you're satisfied, because the more you twist, the tighter the effect is, once you're satisfied, just kind of move the wire back into place next to the other wire how it was before. So I'm just going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm going to hold and twist. And if you want, you can twist all of the wires if you like the look of this. And now I'm just gonna line it back up here. Now I'm just gonna grab this little area here like this, and I'm just gonna push on these wires a little bit. So they kind of start to curve, because we are going to take our stone and we're going to curve them around the stone. So a lot of people ask me on my other video, the older one, if you can glue the stone in, because this next part's really tricky. The stone just wants to pop out until you secured it into place. It's kind of hard to hold it. So you can definitely do that, but I don't know how the glue will affect the stone, so it may be fine depending on the stone. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my wires and just kind of bend them around my stone, but that could be a good way to learn, is by gluing it down if you're having trouble and it keeps falling out. So I'm just kind of pressing on it to keep it in place, and then I'm bending the other wire around in the other direction. So I'll show you now. It isn't staying in place quite yet, but now our wires are going around it like this. So to lock the stone in place, you want the wires to be on the edge of the stone, not just on the very bottom, but almost like higher up the edge like this, to create a window that the stone is too small to pop out of. So if the window is too large, the stone might be able to pop out. So just kind of make sure the wires are a little bit higher on the edge like this. And you can tell by holding it upside down that now this is small enough where the stone is not popping through. So I'm going to take these two wires. I'm trying to hold this here to make sure it doesn't move out of place now that we've got the right size. And I'm taking my wires and I want to put them through the ring. And the easiest way I find to do that, instead of putting the point, is just to kind of curve the wires and then push them through like this. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So again, just making sure that window is nice and small. You don't want to alter it as you do this. There we go. Pulling them through. There we go. So there's still that little edge of the stone showing on each side, which means that this little window is nice and small. The stone isn't loose. You can check by taking your pliers and just kind of tapping on it from the back here to make sure you can't just easily push it out, so it doesn't push through the little window because it's much smaller than the stone and it's feeling secure. So there's two ways to finish this. First, we're going to take this wire, we're going to bend it up like this and trim it, leaving ourselves just a tiny little end like that. Then we're going to take that little end, just kind of curve it in this direction and press down on it. So there it is in there, it's kind of hidden away. And you can do the same thing with this wire, and that way you are going to have just a plain basic ring with no swirls. Or if you want to add a swirl, what you can do is you can take this wire here and you can just wrap it around one more time just to secure it. And now we're going to make the swirl. So to make the swirl, I'm raising up the wire so it's going straight up. I am trimming it and leaving myself enough to make a little swirl. And we're going to make the swirl using round nose pliers. So I'm going to come in here and kind of squish the tip of my wire and then curl it with my round nose pliers like this, and you want that to be nice and pressed down. Right now it's a little bit in the air, so we're gonna just press down on that with our pliers, trying to get it nice and tight up against the ring. The thing about adding a little swirl like this to the ring is there is always going to be a little bit of a chance that the swirl is going to catch on something and that it's going to lift up. There's no way to like completely secure the swirl down so it doesn't move. It shouldn't move, but because of the nature of it, it can theoretically lift up. So that's why I try to just really press down on it so it's nice and flat, and that lessens any chances of it getting caught. So this is how it looks with the swirl, so you can kind of compare and decide whether you want to do the swirl or not. And then on the other side, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that little wire end, curve it in there, press down on it, like that. And since I did the swirl on the other side, I have to do one on this side so it's equal, unless you want it to be kind of a asymmetrical ring and have a swirl on one side and then not a swirl on the other side. That's totally up to you. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim my wire and make another little swirl here. So just grabbing and squishing the end of the wire with my round nose pliers and then swirling that. There it is. And just pressing down on that to make sure there's no little gap to lessen the chances of that getting caught on stuff. There we go. So now the sides are equal, and I'm just going to grab my ring mandrel and bring it down here to a size 7. And there it is. That's the completed ring. And you can do this with a round stone or an oval stone, works fine too. In that old video that I'm referring to where I did this design, I used an oval stone. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like and don't forget to subscribe. I post a new video tutorial every weekend. Thank you. See you next time.